Yeah, sure.
Alrighty, back at it. Decided to do a little bit of, let me turn that music down. Decided to do a little bit of streaming this morning. Yesterday, made some progress, though it was an embarrassingly long time before I caught a really stupid bug preventing me from drawing to the editor. And we discovered a host of other bugs, a handful of which we fixed yesterday, and I've went ahead and posted those to GitHub. But to get back to where we were, we got to the point where we could finally render stuff to the scene viewport, and you can see that it resizes and everything correctly, and that this is actually being loaded from a scene file. Technically, it's not loading from a scene file in the way that we want to for the editor, but it is reading from a scene file. The code that is rendering into this view is from the game module. So there's a couple of things we need to look at now. We need to look at getting the play-in editor itself working, and not just getting this experimental drawing thing going. So actually, the first thing I got to do is actually got to delete all this code. I can't leave it in there because it introduces a dependency that poses a problem for loading and unloading game modules. In particular, oh, hang on a second. No, yeah. In particular, the dependency on the shader. So as it is, my simple 2D renderer doesn't use a material system yet, and that's something that we're going to need to change. So that is, if we take a look at the scene file right now, test2d scene.yaml, this is the actual scene file containing those two simple sprites. We have two entities, position, rotation, and scale. The transform and the name are universal to all entities. And then we've got the sprite components. And the way that this is structured is that if you create a game system, then you get your own section of the components subnode. So the sprite component is from the renderer 2D, and then it can populate the section with anything that it wants. And so far, it's only populating with the path to the texture, the UV coordinates, and the magnification filters, and the bitmap mode. What this probably needs to have after this is we'll need to have a material or a shader at least. Shader probably would be fine. No, it probably should be a material. So the difference between a shader and a material is that a shader is the program that determines what's on the screen, and a material is a combination of the shader and the properties that you set upon it. And in OpenGL, those are called uniforms. So this would be like maybe like a path to a material file, like content, simple mat or something like that. I don't have that ready to go yet. Maybe we'll get to adding that real quick today, but that's not where I'm gonna focus on. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clear out the old hacky rendering code, and we will start with a plane editor button. So as it is right now, let me build and open. Come on. Oh, apparently I had made changes to the test game module, so it's building that. Okay, here we go. So as it is, the scene view is just a panel that you can render to. There's nothing really going on in there. I need a play button. I need something to be able to start and stop playback. So where do I want to put that? I could put that in the scene panel itself. However, I kind of want to have this as a bar above, like below the file edit and view. I probably want to have a bar with like tool buttons on it, and then have the play button be up there. Let me go to the IMGUI code for this. Let me turn that music down just a little bit more. Okay. But here's the scene editor .cpp. This is where we actually set up the window, the immediate mode GUI. All right, so we've got the menu items being set up here. So this is the main menu bar. This is the dock space. These are the views. So I guess we'll need to add another menu bar on top. And I'm not really clear what the best way to do that would be. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just going to add an option to the main menu bar for the moment. I'm not really interested in learning the UX design elements of GUI right now. I just kind of want to get this working. So we've got file. And actually, I'm gonna start reducing what's up here because I don't have a lot of these are dummy elements that I place just for the sake of getting things going. No, you know what? I'll leave them. So we got the file menu, we got the edit menu, we got the view menu, we got the help menu. So at the end of all of those, I'm going to do if IMGUI begin. I guess it would be menu item. Oh, but you have to spell IMGUI with the correct capitalization. So I guess it's just menu item, and then I would say play stop. Actually, let's do play. And then just for the sake of confirming that it's working, do a quick log, and then let me add a Boolean for tracking this. Or, you know what, I don't need to do that. I can do if, I'm gonna do a compound if statement here. So we're gonna do if EP runtime. I believe it's, oh, that's a member variable, right? So I need to actually have access to the runtime. Do I have it here? Editor, runtime. I don't think I have access to the runtime from here. Maybe I should. What I wanted to do is running. EP runtime is running, and that, but is running is a member variable, I believe, and I don't think I have access to it. Let's go to the engine runtime and double check that. Okay. All right, so is running is yeah, it's a member of the class, and it is static. Okay, so this is a privacy issue. So the editor runtime is friends with the engine runtime, so the editor runtime can access this, but now I'm kind of faced with the question, do I want to be able to access it directly outside of code? In a shipping game, like in your actual game code, runtime is running is assumed to be true. It is actually a hidden variable. I don't let you set it. Instead, you invoke quit, and then quit will set it to false. And there's nothing to set it to true because it's set to true by default. In the case of the editor, is running has a different function. If it's true, that means that play and editor is running. And if it's false, then it's not. So now that I've said that out loud, I realize that yes, I will actually need access to this value in quite a few places in the editor code. So how should I expose that? I could do a getter for it and just make that as part of the API. It would be a pointless part of the API for shipping games though, and so I don't want to be adding more information than a game developer needs. What I could do though is I could, because this class is a friend of the editor runtime, I could expose it through the editor runtime, which seems, yeah, I mean, it seems a little obtuse, but I think that probably is the easiest way for me to limit the scope access of is running in shipping code, yet still be able to modify it from editor code. So in the editor runtime, then I will be adding the play and editor's start and stop. So we got quit, run. This is the actual runtime stuff for the editor. We have create engine runtime and destroy engine runtime, which is something that we've set up in the last couple of streams. I will now add static void start play and editor and static void stop play in editor, and then we will add those definitions to runtime.cpp down here. Okay. There we go. And it's not super complicated. We would do engine, or we would do EP runtime runtime is running equals true, and then equals false for stop play and editor. And the access should be available here, because even though this is a private member, the editor runtime class is friends with a forward declaration of the editor runtime in the engine runtime. Down here, we're at friends of the launcher and the editor runtime. Cool. Now it's actually going to be a little bit more complicated than just setting is running to true and false. So let's go back to those methods. So when we do start play and editor, the first thing we need to do is we need to set is running to true, and then this is actually where we would start the play and editor init. So we would do PIE init like that. So this is the crux of how Play in Editor is set up in Enterprise, because instead of doing a single entry point for your game code, I give you two. I give you technically I give you three. I give you the place to set up your game code, and then I give you a place to set up the game code that runs in the editor. And the difference is whether you can just jump right into a level. So if you're playing, if you're building a game that's like a first-person shooter, the idea is that eventually you can just like right-click on a spot in your scene and say play from here, and you can have that power, which is something I straight up ripped from Unreal Engine, by the way. You can have that power without having to prescribe a game structure to your games. Like, you don't have to use a system of actors and pawns and all the things that Unreal Engine prescribes. You just use the Play in Editor init to define how your game starts in Play in Editor. Cool. Now, and this has to be Play in Editor cleanup. Now, for the sake of today, I'm actually going to do something different. I'm not going to use Play in Editor init. I'm going to use game init, specifically because I already have a test scene set up with Play in Editor, or with game init and game cleanup, and I just want to piggyback off of that. But we're going to switch back to PIE init and PIE cleanup later on. Cool. And is running false. I'm almost wondering whether it'd be better for me to go to invoke EP runtime quit. I don't think there's any side effects. Yeah, it literally sets it to false. For the sake of being clear, though, I think I will invoke EP runtime quit instead of setting is running to false. Because there might be side effects, like in the future I might add something here that might contain side effects. Though I can't imagine what those would be at the moment, now that I'm thinking about it. You know what? I will do it the other way. I will do it like this. Because if there are side effects in quit, chances are I won't want them to apply to the editor. I'll revisit that if I need to. But yeah, that's that. And now I need to look at rendering to the scene viewport. So how should I do that? Oh, I forgot to expose. I forgot to expose the thing I was going to, which was I need the ability to look up whether we're in play mode. So let's go back to runtime.h for the editor, and then we need to see static bool is in play mode. And this is pretty straightforward. However, the definition, I'll put it in the CPP file like that, and basically we just return EP runtime is running. Cool. And that'll allow us to access the play mode variable in any place in the editor code without having to worry about the access protection. Cool. And so back in here, we will do runtime is in play mode for these options. So if we're in play mode, then we will add a play menu item and then this is where we would respond to that. And then I'll say else, then I'll say else I am GUI menu item stop. And then this is where we would do the stopping. And I just want to confirm that this actually does set up the menus the way that I think it should. So let me add IO stream so I can access the cout. Cool. And then let me build and run that as soon as I've got. Oh, there's an extra. Oh no, there's not. What's up with the expected a semicolon? Did I forget one? Oh, I forgot to say else if. Yeah. There we go. Let's build and confirm that those buttons actually show up and do things. Okay, so now we've got a stop option. I click it, and nothing happens. So something's going wrong. Okay, so let's review how this happens. We start off and we're already not in play mode, so stop should show up. Oh, but clicking, yeah, I didn't add the. Okay, so play clicked triggered, but in my haste I forgot to actually toggle back. So we would do runtime start play in editor. And we would stop it here. Build times are so much faster now that I've fixed the. Okay, we got a problem. So events duplicate subscription to single event type on a callback. Okay, and let's go to the console. So we have a duplicate subscription for the same callback on controller wake. That's interesting. So this is another instance of a failure to clean up after loading a game module. I think. Oh, you know what? It's not. It is. Okay. I think I left a hack in place from last stream and I forgot to remove it. Yeah, so I'm actually calling game init and game cleanup in places where I normally set up the game systems. So it's actually setting up the game twice, which is why I got that warning. And that actually wasn't a warning, it was just it wasn't an error, it just was just a warning. I just happened to have it set a breakpoint so I could immediately inspect it when it happens. Okay, good. And then in here, no, that's fine, I think. And then here, this needs to go. It's useful to have source control for so many things, and this is one of them. That's looking good. That's looking good. Okay, yeah, that should do better. Let's try that again. Yeah, build times are so much faster now that I've got the project for native I think it was YAML CPP that was globbing every time I went to build. So we got a problem. I clicked stop and then it froze. I clicked it a couple more times and then we wound up here. Okay, looking at the log, it looks like we've got a flood of messages. Hundreds of window get aspect ratio calls have failed. And then we got a duplicate subscription to a single event type on a callback again. That is interesting. Play clicked, game cleanup, stop clicked, game init. Is that backwards? Did I do the did I do the code backwards? Scene editor, close others. I did. I put start after clicking the stop button, and vice versa. So I was starting after. Wait, hang on. Getting my logic turned around already. Right, so actually, I need this to be a false check. Because the play button should be available when we're not already in play mode. So, yeah, alright. Probably this doesn't address the issue that we just had, but let's try this again. Alright, so it seems to all be working. We've got Game Assist Init was called. Let me click. Why does it say stop? We're not in play mode. Oh, hang on. I had it right the first time, except for I put the wrong names. Okay, so first we check to see whether we're in play mode. If we are, then we have the option to stop. And then when we click stop, we say stop play in editor. And then otherwise we have the play button and it starts it. I don't know why that was so confusing, but let's do this again. There we go. Cool. Now we've got the play button. Click play. And then immediately we have a whole bunch of get aspect ratio calls that fail. Those are flooding the screen. So let's go to one of them. Get aspect or window.cpp for the engine. Get aspect ratio. I'll set a break point here. Okay. So the problem arises from the fact that the engine library is not creating its own window handle in this instance. So going up the call stack a little bit, we see that this is occurring when we go to push the camera. So this is the draw call from the simple scene involving Hollow Knight and Madeline from Celeste. And when we go to render this, we push a frame buffer on the stack, we set all the details up and so on and so forth. And then we push a camera that uses the aspect ratio of the window. So that's a problem. We need the game code to be able to retrieve the aspect ratio and then have that same code still work when we're in the editor. So we'll need to revisit how we do this. So we got get width, get height. And then the way that these work is by returning the value window width and window height. And I issue an and this is from the era before I had a editor application. But the idea was that if you invoke window get width and you somehow do it before the window handle was created, then you get an error and return 0. And I did that as an error that you can recover from instead of an assertion for some reason. I think that was to prevent edits to the engine library from breaking a game if I did something wrong. I would just get a log saying that I did something wrong. This scheme is going to have to change a little bit. I've actually got two window.h's. I've got one for the editor and one for the engine. The one for the engine is considerably more sophisticated. It's the one that we've been using for game code for a while now. However, I now should get, when I go to set mode, set width, set height, and all that stuff, all of that should be interacting with the scene viewport now. So I need to supplant the behavior for these methods when we are in the editor. I think in the launcher it'll still work just fine. Let me quickly sidestep a bug that we haven't fixed. And then I'm gonna test the launcher out. Buffer. Great. Push pop delete. Okay. Rebuild. Because I believe that when we're in the launcher, yeah, in the launcher, everything still seems to work. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not really sure why. Because doesn't the launcher have its own window? Oh, no, it doesn't. Okay, right, yeah. So in the launcher code, what happens is that the launcher allows the engine runtime to create its own window. So it works identically to the standalone game. Okay, so let's go to this code. Okay. But that's the editor. Here. Okay, so this is the window procedure, the Win32 stuff. This is swap buffers, set mode, set width, set height, and all that hasn't been implemented here. At least not yet. But this sort of stuff would be on the Win32 side and not on the platform generic side. So what I think I'll do is I'll if def these out. Swap buffers. Oh yeah, swap buffers doesn't even apply here either. Swap buffers doesn't apply in the editor either, because when you go to render to the editor window, it actually just renders to a frame buffer, and then the frame buffer texture is rendered, and the swap buffers call is handled by the editor window. So I guess the first thing I'll need to do is if def those out, so that they're not in use here. So all of these need to go, or they need to be supplanted. Get mode doesn't apply either. Most of this stuff isn't actually implemented yet. It is just shells in anticipation for future API. And then window init needs to go as well. There's actually, I think, almost all the code in this file. Yeah, actually all the code in this file needs to get supplanted. So, if I'm remembering correctly, the init and the cleanup are not invoked in the editor because of how we handled it. If we go to runtime.cpp for the engine, we have an if-def EP build dynamic, and then we check to see if we're in the editor. If it's not an editor running the DLL, then we use window init. And I have a to-do here saying we should move window init to launcher, which, yeah, that makes sense if I wanted to have the launcher handle its own window. And I may do in the future, but I'm going to put that on the back burner for now. The point is that the window init and the window cleanup calls are conditional. Init, cleanup. So the get aspect ratio, get width, and get height, and even the get mode, I could leave the functions intact in editor builds, but then supplant them in the main window.cpp file. I think I may want to do that. The setters as well, even though the setters are going to not do anything in the case of the editor, because the size of the viewport of the editor is going to be determined by dragging it around. I don't know, maybe I'll have a nice, a nice to have feature where it'll actually set the correct aspect ratio within the window instead of just filling it, but that's a feature nice to have. Swap buffers. Yeah, and this is called a swap buffers. Hopefully that's conditional as well. It is, so we're only calling swap buffers on the launcher and the standalone builds. Cool. All right, so I think that we're largely ready to set up. So swap buffers. So here's where I'll do the break. I'll do if-def EP build. Well, actually, this isn't as straightforward as that. I was thinking I could do like EP build dynamic, but the problem is that the dynamic build of the enterprise engine library might be in use by the launcher. So I can't simply move these into the generic file. Like I can't just move this from window win32.cpp to window.cpp. Because I can't conditionally compile away based off of the runtime condition. I guess I'm going to need to refactor this API a little bit, because I need to have a generic platform definition that I can call that will do code related to the editor. Yeah, so this is going to need to change. So let's go to window.h on the engine side. We got set width, set height, set title, and set mode. As well as these getters. So I need platform specific versions of these. So I'll start by duplicating all of them. Actually, I'll do that by doing this. So they're one after the other. And then we'll have suffixes to the versions that are platform specific. Like that. So set mode platform. So this is a pass-through essentially that gets invoked when we are in the launcher. And then in the standalone builds, we just won't link to these methods. Or wait. In standalone modes we will. Yes, I think I've got that straight in my head. So it's a kind of a once indirect thing. So going back to window.cpp for Win32, these all need to change their names. So instead of set mode, set width, set height, and set title. Oh, that's enough of that. Let me turn on some other tunes. They always come back to the same playlists because they won't get me copyright striked. Get mode, get width, get height, get aspect ratio. All of these will now be the platform versions. And then I'll have to do the same thing on Window, macOS.mm. Here. I'm generally not a fan of making changes to the macOS code because I can't technically recompile and test it from here on my PC, but this is just a simple renaming, so I'm sure it'll be fine. Plus, I have the ability to Clang format Objective-C++ now on Windows. Okay, these are the getters. There we go. Cool. Run Clang format, save, run Clang format, and save. Cool. And now we just need to do the window.cpp, the generic version of these implementations. Oh, and that's interesting. Do I not have a generic implementation yet? Huh, I guess I don't. So I'll need to add that. Here we go. So I got window for macOS, window for Win32. I don't just have window.cpp, so let's add that now. And then go to the CMake lists for the engine, and we need to add it. We've got the list of source files up top. These are the headers. These are the precompile headers. Here's the engine source. So I lump the Windows stuff into the graphics. So this will be in the graphics folder, window.cpp. And that should be enough. That'll propagate to the other CMake lists. Cool. And reconfiguration went good. And now if we go back to window.cpp, I can do include window.h. Or that should be enterprise graphics window.h, just to follow my style guidelines. Cool. And now we can do the implementation of the non-generic versions of these. What's the what's going on here? Can't open source file core.h. Why not? Let me continue what I was doing, and then I'll worry about that. Okay, so I'm copying out all of the generic prototypes for all of these. And these will be EP window. Actually, these will be window : and then, yeah. Cool. And then I need to wrap this all in the enterprise namespace. Like so. Cool. And then I need to invoke the platform specific versions of these. So I will, oops, copy all of these out. Copy, and then in the bodies of these, I will do calls with that are just pass through for the moment. Cool. And then these need to return awesome. Clang format sets the tabs back to white space. Cool. Now that should be in a state where it would compile. I'm not sure what this is about. But yeah, let's F7. Okay, we got some errors. So what did I miss? Oh, right. Because window.h is not inside of the, yeah, it's its own thing. So it's just enterprise/window.h. That was a change I had made to the include headers to make them simpler to use in the game code, where you just do enterprise/ the thing that you want. What's the problem now? Oh, I need to prefix this. Yeah. Okay, so that's building now, and this should actually be behaving identically to the way it had before. Let's run the standalone game real quick and confirm. Yeah, it seems to be working okay here. It's got the correct aspect ratio, which it got from the Win32 window code. And if I run the game through the launcher application, same deal. Cool. Now that we have we've separated those out, I can, on this file, do some checking on the editor flag, and then here we go. And then from there, decide whether to use the platform-specific code or if I want to use some generic code. And this actually probably might be a spot where I can do a little bit of cleanup as well. I'm taking a look at the window win32.cpp. There's a couple of things that probably don't have to live in the platform-specific files. I've just never bothered to put them into a generic windows.cpp. So an example of that would be getting the window width probably can be done independently of the platform. So we got init, yeah. Oh, this is wrong. This is the editor. Here we go. So yeah, where it says just return window width, that's probably the same on Windows, Mac OS for the engine as well. Pretty much. I mean, we haven't implemented window width adjustments where the game can dynamically resize the game window. But if we go to the get methods, we just check whether there's a window reference, and if there's not, and if it exists, we return the window width. That can all be done on the platform side. And I think I can probably drop this error as well. I don't think that it's very likely that I will miss the window not being created. So this is probably a useless error. So let's change that. We'll go back to window.h, and I'm going to need to add a couple of private members. Well, yeah, private members. So we'll do static. What am I using for these floats? Or am I using? Come on. It's not showing me. There it is. No, it is unsigned ints is what I'm using. So I'm using these. Let me go back to here. Okay, so we've got static unsigned ints for the window width and height, and a float for the aspect ratio. Which I wonder why I do unsigned, because the API does just regular ints. Maybe there's a macOS reason why. Huh. You know, there actually doesn't seem to be. Yeah, okay. So I'll just change those to be regular ints. There's no need to do unsigned in this case. Even though, strictly speaking, they'll probably always be positive. It's just a little bit more readable just to say static int. And then in Windows Win32, I need to get rid of these. Oh, and I should do a window mode variable as well. There we go. Cool. So now the window class has got, it's tracking its own window mode, window height, window width, and so on. Now remember that this is a static class. I don't actually instantiate it. Every member is static. So I just use this to allow myself to have an API with private members that's only available to the system. It's just a way to encapsulate. Hey Joyo. I didn't see it pop in there. I have a little bot thing that's supposed to show up chat on my screen, but I don't think it shows up every time. How's your day going? Okay, cool. So now that I've moved this out, I need to move some of this functionality back. So I don't need get width platform, get height platform, get aspect ratio platform. Actually, none of the getters do I need platform specific. The setters I will though, because when you set the window mode, you actually have to do platform specific API calls to change, whether you're doing, exclusive full screen or borderless windowed or resizable windowed or whatever. And same thing goes for the width and height and the title. But I will now have a generic set mode, set width that can be redirected to do engine editor specific things. Pretty good. Played some Valorant. I'm now 3 points away from goal 2, which is 2 under what's considered high elo. Nice. I've had some friends that have really been trying to get me to play Valorant. I just haven't bothered yet. It looks pretty good. Looks pretty fun. I think the main thing that's preventing me from getting into it is that it seems like it seems like it's supposed to be an Overwatch clone, and I can't get past that for some reason. All right, so back in here, I can now get rid of all of these on the generic window.cpp. It has nothing to do with Overwatch. Isn't it the same genre though? Like it's the same team-based tactical shooter where you have heroes, or is that is it a totally different style of game? No, not really. I don't know, maybe I'll have to take another look at it. It's free to play, right? I can just download it and start trying it out. Maybe I'm thinking of a different game. Yeah, first-person hero shooter, free to play. Yeah. It's more of a CS:GO, but not everyone can buy every ability. Oh, I see what you mean. That'll be worth looking into for sure. I've originally started streaming specifically just to be able to live code, but I've gotten to a point where like most of my friends don't live in the same state as me, so I'm thinking that I might start playing some games on stream. Maybe Valorant will be one of the first. I forgot what I was doing here. Oh, right. I needed to do if runtime is editor, or oh, I need to include the header because I don't think I include. Yeah. So we got include enterprise window.h. We need to do include enterprise runtime.h, and then from here we can do if runtime is editor. Then we can do the check. Here we go. So if we're in the editor, we will do one thing. Oops. And if we're not, we'll do the other. So we'll do set platform if we are not in the editor, essentially. If we are in the editor, then how do I handle set mode? I guess what I could do for now is just return set mode. I haven't really decided how I want to handle set mode. So set mode sets your window mode. You can tell it to be a fixed size window or resizable and fixed without a border, and then you can do exclusive full screen. I think most people will be using borderless and full screen for the most part, but this is the API that you use to set that. And if your game code sets the window size while you're playing in the editor, I'm not really sure what the behavior should be. I guess it would be something that you would ignore. So this probably will be fine for finished code. I just don't like it very much for some reason. What I'll do is I'll do if def ep build dynamic, and then end if. And run cling format on that real quick. So the idea is that we only do this check when we're building the DLL version of the engine library. If we are in the editor, we do nothing on this call. And that's probably going to be the same for a couple of these. Like set title, we probably won't be probably won't be setting anything from the editor. Though it might be a little bit cool to have like, if I can head back to the editor real quick. I don't think anything's broken at the moment, but let me try building and running the editor. Oh, I've got something that needs to compile still. But if we look at the editor, probably like the panel itself has a title. Maybe the game code can change that while you're playing an editor. That might be a little bit confusing though, because when you're in the editor, you want to be able to tell which window you're looking at, and the scene in the game view will look very similar. On the fence about that. But that's a tomorrow Michael problem. I will deal with that later. So we got the set title being opted out, set width and set height. Yeah, all the setters probably we can opt out of. I may change my mind about it later, but for now, good. And then on the Win32 side, for get mode, get width, get height, and all of that stuff, this is now all generic code. We can get rid of it from this file. The squigglies are still there from the compilation notes, not because there was anything wrong with them. And then for window width and height, we actually need to get those from the class now. Oh, okay. Now that's actually going to be a problem. This is the window procedure callback. So on Windows computers, when you are working with a regular window, there's normally a background loop where, I'm doing it as a loop in the case of the game engine, but when you go to pump your Windows messages into the application, this method is called with what the message is and what it contains, and you use it to respond to things like clicking and typing and dragging and things like that. And this is the window procedure for the game window for a shipping game. And it is not a member function, so it doesn't have access to the private members of the window class. I wonder if I could do that. Probably shouldn't. I should probably keep this outside of the window.h because it's platform specific. However, that probably should be static. Or no, can it be static? Yeah, I think it can be. I'll leave it as static. And then I guess what I'll need to do is I'll need to friend the window procedure function so that it has access to private members. I try not to do friending too often, but there's a couple of places where it's just really useful for this architecture. So I need to do a friend of the Win32 procedure. And I've done this once before, I think. Just trying to remember where I did it. I basically needed to declare the prototype, I believe. And then I could use it. Okay, then that's actually not quite correct. What I had done was I had included the Windows.h header conditionally for the purposes of friending. And that was only for the entry point. So yeah, I'll need a forward declare in this case. Let me get the prototype. This is one of the things about C++ I don't really like very much at all. I don't like the idea of having to forward declare things in headers, and I generally just don't like the interaction between headers and code files. I think it's clunky. C++ 20 has got modules now, which solves a lot of those problems, but it's not perfect. Yeah, it's going to be a long time before everybody's using C++ 20, because we've got companies that are still using C++ 11, and even companies that are still maintaining C++ fucking 98 code. That's, yeah, I don't know. I'm really hopeful for a C++ language replacement. That would be great. Type to flunk winner result. I don't think I need this stuff. But I really don't like the solution. Because doing this as a forward declaration in this header exposes it to any place that includes window.h. The alternative would be to make these things public, but... Oh, wait, what am I saying? I could simply use the get width, get height, and get mode in the platform specific call. That makes sense. Because the setters are members, so they have access to the private stuff. But the getters, I can just use those anywhere else. So instead of using window height, I would just say window get height. That should work. Right? Oh, it's still complaining because it's still showing me the squiggles from my previous compilation attempt. But yeah, that should be fine. I wonder why I needed the width, or needed the height and not the width here. So mouse move event, get the mouse position from the X param and the Y param. I guess I needed to use get height to offset. Oh no, I'm flipping. I'm using get height minus the Y param, so I guess I'm flipping the Y coordinate is all I'm doing. Okay, that makes sense. Let me try compiling that. I know you had mentioned that you were still a very new programmer, Joyo, but what languages have you looked into besides Python and C++? Looks like we've got a linker error. Get frame buffer width. Oh. So we're using window get width here and the frame buffers.cpp. Why is that failing to grab it? Do I not have the window.cpp? Oh, somehow I didn't. Oh, I don't think I have. I don't think I've set up the getters anywhere. Oh, okay. Yeah, so I got rid of them and then didn't do anything with them. I've got the get mode platform stuff, which I should get rid of on the Mac OS side. Get. Okay, I'll get rid of all those. So now we've only got the platform-specific setter code. Okay, and now I need to implement these. And actually, this is probably, I can probably just do this right here in the header. I'll do return window mode. Similar here, I will do return window width. This is another thing I'm not so jazzed about with C++ is getters and setters become necessary. In other languages like C#, getters and setters are a bit more. I just been typing window height for everything. Get aspect ratio. In C# you have properties that you can implicitly use getters and setters. So like you use it just like you use a variable name, and then it'll run your getting and setting associated code. In C++, you only have variables and functions, or variables and methods, I should say. Though in C++, everything's called a function. And so, like, for me to do additional peripheral code with variables, or for me to make a read-only variable, I have to do a getter setter. In C#, I could just do a read-only property, or a property that only has a getter. This is so much less elegant. Okay, that should be fine. No linking errors yet. That's a good sign. Okay, spoke too soon. Here we go, got more linker errors. That's the trouble with these refactors, is that you always forget something. EP window mode. EP window mode referenced by window.h. I'm confused. Why would that be a problem? EP window mode. EP window get mode. Which target is this? This is we're building engine.dll. Undefined symbol. It's telling me that the private member window mode is not defined in DLL builds of the engine, but that doesn't make a lot of sense, because I'm looking at it here. It's declared here. Oh, I didn't, because it's telling me exactly what it did wrong. I just forgot that I didn't do it. More C++ things. So what I forgot to do was actually declare them in a CPP file, or define them in a CPP file. There we go. Except for I don't need the static keyword here. Good. And I guess I may as well do a set default window mode stuff. I'll at least set a default window width and height to be 0, and then I'll set a default aspect ratio of 1, which is a perfectly square aspect ratio. And then for the default window mode, I think for default I'll do windowed resizable. That's probably fine. Okay, there we go. Finally, everything linked correctly. All right, cool. So everything seems to be working still, which is good. That was the launcher. Let me go to the editor. Everything seems to be alive and well. Okay. So now that we've got the infrastructure in place for the getters and setters, and we can do our own thing for platform-specific code, I think we should look at making this information available to the test state. So somehow I need to populate these elements from the editor. So I'm going to need to friend the editor's window information. So the editor's window functions can access and edit these properties. The trouble is that the window methods in the editor are actually just in a namespace. They're not in a class right now. So I guess I could do that. You can't friend a namespace, I don't think. I really don't think so. But if you could, that would be nice. Friend. Yeah, that's not how they work. So I guess what I'll do is I'll go ahead and cave and make this a class. So now I've got the editor window class. Same as before, these are going to be static. So I'm only making it a class so that I have the class trappings that I want to use, namely private members and friendship. So these will need to be static methods now. And because it's a class, I need to declare these as public, because classes in C++ default to being private members, and then you got public. And whenever I do public things in a class, I like to put them on top so that when you're reading through your headers to see what you can do with a class, you see the public stuff up front. That's a personal taste thing, though. And I guess I don't actually need private members at this juncture. I just need this to be within a class so that I can friend it. I can forward declare editor window in the engine library. And do semicolon. However, this is bound to have broken something. So let's go through and confirm that I don't need to refactor things. Like, yeah, this says namespace editor window. That's no longer a thing. So these now need to say Well, hang on a moment. Do I need to do that? Yeah, I do. So I'm gonna need to do a similar refactor compared to what I did in the engine window code. I'm actually going to be moving members to be private members of this static class. So window width, window height, aspect ratio are now things that you access generically. The editor window delegate is a Mac specific thing, so that belongs in this file. Void create primary is now window create primary. The rest of this should be the same except for setting these. Because now these are member functions, so our member functions, they're now member methods, so they have access to the private members of the window class. Okay, and I have to declare this particular member higher up because I need that to be accessible down here. But actually that should be a private member as well. Okay, so we got a static EP window mode. So I need to actually include enterprise/window.h to get the window stuff from the enterprise library. And then that doesn't need to be set anymore. Okay, static EP window mode. Good. And then these need to be defined in a generic file, which I think I'll need to add one. Let me go to... Well, first I'm going to quickly proofread the stuff that I changed in the Mac OS code. That now should just say namespace editor. Okay. And then we'll go to window 132 for the editor, and we need to make the same changes here. So we got the window procedure, we got the namespace now needs to be just editor. This is all window specific stuff, so that still belongs here. Void create primary, void init. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, because configure IMGUI was a window method. So actually, sorry, init, set title, start frame, end frame, all of this, these are window class methods now. Okay, and then I'm thinking about that. I need to change to the Mac OS side and fix that as well. Remember the encoding and decoding stuff we talked about yesterday? I did that. Nice. So you got the conversion to base 64 or from base 64 and to and from. Window end frame, start frame. Okay, yeah, I've actually got all of the prefixes in there. Good. Okay. Okay, good. Did the bitwise logic give you any trouble? And this needs to go as well. All right, I think that's probably good. I think that's... Oh, but I forgot to add, I need to do what I did on the engine side, and I need to add a... Oh no, I do have a windows.cpp already. I don't need to add the file. I just need to add some definitions. So here, all of these private members, I need to declare them, or sorry, define them in a CPP file, and this is that file. Now that I'm looking at it, I should be using just regular ints for the width and height. And I need to do window, yeah. And then this needs to change to be just editor, because there's no window namespace anymore. Okay, I think that's everything. Let me build and run. There's always something. What did I forget? Link error, undefined symbol, editor window, create primary. I got the conversion from list content to string back to list content, or if you want, back into a readable string. Nice. That's awesome, man. Do you think you'll use this in other projects? Because if so, this might be a good opportunity to practice making a reusable library. Editor, window, create primary. Okay. That's totally fine. Doing things just to do them is sometimes rewarding enough. Oh, but you did put it into a library anyways? Yeah. Nice. Yeah, knowing how to package things for whatever language is a good skill to have. In C++, the way that you package libraries now, at least the most highly adopted way, is by doing a CMake project, and then you can just like bring in the CMake repository and then add a line to your CMake file, and it'll include it. Or to use yeah, there's a number of ecosystems in C++. It's kind of a mess, to be honest. Something I like about Python is that you don't have to configure a whole bunch of stuff because it's all running on Python. You don't have to worry about, you know, which compiler you're using and setting up all your build flags and things. It's another thing I don't really... I like a lot about C++, but I think it's in sore need of a total replacement, and packaging libraries is one of the main reasons why. I think it's just so hard to... Like, there's so many different ways to assemble a project in C++, and most of them are bad ideas. But there's no standard. And I think I think packaging should be a feature of the language and not a feature of your tools, if that makes sense. So somehow create primary is undefined, and I don't know why. Because I don't remember getting rid of it. Editor, window, create primary. So that's a reference. So here's create primary. Oh, I forgot to prefix it. Okay. I'm moving a whole bunch of stuff that was just functions to be member functions or methods, and it requires just going around and prefixing all of their uses. Undefined symbol, window configure ImGUI. Yeah, here's another one. Cool. Hopefully that's the last one. I just ended up converting the numbers into a string and put int at the end of the encoded string, then it goes into the list into a string. Nice. Why did you, out of curiosity, why did you pick the double colon for the suffix for the unencoded string? Okay, that's building now. Good. Cool. So now that this is back into a class, I can go into where I was, which was where exactly? I think it was the engine. Yeah. I don't think anyone's going to type in hello int. Yeah, that's probably fair. The when you're dealing with those sorts of things, careful consideration of those elements is really important, because like, what if somebody wanted to do double colons in a string? Like, I mean, it's unlikely, right? But you have to allow for folks using your API to handle those weird edge cases. You can still use double colon or single colon. But like, if somebody like wanted to use hello colon int colon as a value, but as a string instead of an int, this is where escape characters come in. Yeah, you just can't use int as the last 7 characters. Oh, so if you used it more than once, then you could. So if you did colon int colon and then did it again, the first colon int colon would be part of the value. Oh, right, I know where I was. Window.h. Here. So where I was is I was getting these values set by the editor. And now I can add a friend class editor window. And I need to forward declare it. And I want to match the style of my previous forward declarations. You could do x colon int colon dot, or with a third colon. Everything works exactly, unless the last 7 characters. Okay, nice. That's a perfectly fine way to do it. You are thinking with portals, my friend. Okay, yeah. So this is how you do it. This is how I've been doing it. I declare the namespace and then the class without defining it. It's a little hacky, but that's all right for what I want to do. So we'll do namespace editor, and then inside we have class window, and that's all. And I should put in a note that says needed for rendering the editor window class. Okay. And then down here, when I go friend class editor window, it will be trying to friend this forward declaration, and then at link time, it will resolve into the editor's class. Cool. I'm thinking about putting str at the end of strings because that would mean that you could also use the last 7 characters, be string or end. Yeah, it's the API design is you know a huge element of what you're dealing with. It's the consideration of not just how to make things work, but what's the most elegant, user-friendly way to do it. And that's really nice that you're thinking about that stuff. There's an expression that anybody can make a program that a computer understands, but only good programmers can make a program that a human understands. Or something along those lines. I'm not sure who said it. Cool. So let's head, I can probably close out all of these now. Let's head back to scene editor. Yeah, scene, or no, I would be going to the scene view. And then in here, when we do a new window size, I can actually just adjust the size directly, because now yeah, actually I need to add an API, window.h. So the window class now on the editor application has access to the private members of the engine class. However, I still need the means by which to set. So I'll do a public member for this, static void. We'll do set editor viewport, or set engine window size. And we can start doing the setters from here. Gonna head back to window.cpp on the engine side. I think I'm going to just copy and paste. I'll do this from the header. Copy and paste the getters and setters. Actually, I don't need the getters for anything right now. I'll just do the setters. And of the setters, I only need set width and set height. Set mode and set title don't actually apply when you're playing in the editor. So that's even better. Yeah, and I'll do it like that. And I can probably just directly do it from here. I can do EP window width, or window width equals width. And this could be inlined, basically. Yep, works fine now. Nice. I could say static inline here. I I'm not really too worried about performance on the editor though. I'll just let the optimizer figure out whether it should be inlined. But yeah. Set width, set height. Good. And now that these are available, I can directly set the width and height of the virtual window in the editor. In my scene view, I can set them from here. So I guess I would need to set them every frame, because every frame ImGui defines this. So draw, push style var, ImGui begin scene, and then here I say I get the window content region and set up that whole thing the way that I did at the end of the last stream. We resize the frame buffer to be this size, and this is also where I would do EP. Actually, it would be window. Do I need to include window here? I do. Let me do that. Include window. My autocomplete's not. Oh, I forgot the pound sign. Include window or graphics. I forget the structure of the editor headers. Oh, it's just under window. Okay. Window/window.h. Surprisingly, you can also use characters like pound and a with the umlauts. I don't know if there's a special name with for a with the umlauts. What's surprising about that? They're not part of the character set that you were using for the base 64, but they should be valid data for whatever value you're doing, right? Cool. Now I've got the window, and I could say set width or set. Where's my set width and set height? Oh, I didn't rename them. I was surprised that base 64 can encode and decode those. What are their ASCII values? Because as long as they are below... Oh wait, you're saying that that those values are showing up inside of your base 64 string, where it should be just capital lowercase letters and numbers, and then those two characters. Yeah, this is well outside of base 64. Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. These would have to be these are multi-byte characters. A multi-byte character is always represented with more than one byte. That's why they're called that. I wonder if there's some Python automatic conversion shenanigans going on that's dealing with that for you, where the character is being interpreted as multiple bytes instead of just one byte. No, but yeah, but by definition, you have to have more than one byte to represent that stuff. And the base 64 representation that you are using can only encode 6 bits of info per character. So there must be that'd be worth figuring out. Yeah, so now I've got set engine window width and set engine window height, which is a much clearer API call. So from here, where I was resizing the frame buffer to match the size of the viewport, I can do EP, or sorry, not EP, just regular window, set engine window height, and then I can do the height from here. And same thing with the window set engine window width. Cool. Nice. So now the game code, when it goes to set its aspect ratio and stuff, it's getting it from the viewport in the editor when you are playing in the editor. Which there was a whole bunch of infrastructure that needed to go into making that happen, but here we are. I seem to be using this calculation. Actually, I only use it twice, so I'm just going to leave these to calculate more than once. I don't really care. And then I need to deal with one last thing. And that's that when I go to get the window width and height, I had the... Oh, I must have already resolved that. Huh. I had a warning that said if you try to get the width and height, that it would generate an error if there was no window handle. Maybe that's for the setters, and I need to change that. Here. Set title, start frame, end frame, story primary. Well, this is the editor. 132. Here. I must have done that when I wasn't paying attention. I must have done that when I was paying attention. Sometimes I'll just do the thing that I'm thinking about and not consciously go over it. I'm just quickly double checking using my git diff that I made the change that I am watching for. Oh, right. Okay, yeah, so I outright eliminated the catch, because this is the error that was generating before. It was saying that there was no window handle, so it would skip over this code. That no longer applies, because now I've moved that to generic code. All right, cool. F7, build all. There we go. All right, seems to be working. We've got the game code running in the background, presumably. If I go to the debug console, we've got GameSys init. Same as before. And we can quit without crashing. All right, so now that we've got all of that going, we're gonna need to do... We need to do the play and editor stuff. So we'll go back to the scene editor. Here we go. So we got runtime is in play mode. We confirm whether we're in play mode. And if we are in play mode, we will display the stop button and then call stop play and editor if clicked. and vice versa with the play button. So let's click play. Okay, that's interesting. I've got a stop and a play button now. Let me go to the debug console. It says play was clicked, game init was called, which eventually that's going to be a plan editor init. And then it loaded the texture from game init. So the game is running right now. For some reason, play is still visible though. So stop is still visible. And oh, okay, I see what I overlooked. I'm using else if, and I'm not checking play mode here. So if we're in play mode and we haven't already clicked the stop button, it is presenting the play option, and that's not quite correct. What we would do is we would need to confirm, and I'll just drop the else here. Actually, no, I'll leave the else. We need to do runtime is in play mode. Sorry, runtime is not in play mode, and we haven't clicked the IMGUI play button. Okay, let me try that. Cool. So I click play. There's a bit of a hang. Presumably that's where it's loading the game resources. Yep, and we see game init was called, and then in the case of game init, we are loading a bunch of textures and things, and so it hangs a little bit while it's doing that. And I can confirm that that's the case because I'm loading a texture with a non-power of two dimensions, and that is generating bitmaps, and that's generally bad practice. So I have a warning going off here telling me, hey, the texture content folder / text3 does not have power of two dimensions, and that's a good warning to have. Now if I click stop was clicked, game cleanup was called, and we are good. I can close the project, open the project. We are not in play mode yet. I click play. Play clicked, game init called. Interestingly, I am not seeing the warning about the texture anymore. Oh, because it's already loaded. Right, I forgot about that. So this kind of ties into the residual leftovers from the old way of doing things. I have not yet made sure that everything gets dumped when you leave play mode, when you close and reopen a project. So I think what's happening is that when I go to quit or go to close the project, it's unloading the DLL, but the OpenGL context remains, and the textures that were loaded from the game module are still here. They're still in memory on the GPU. So that's something that we're going to need to change. Oh, you know what? If I click play and stop, oh, okay. Play and stop are still present when there's no game module loaded, but they just don't do anything. Okay. So there's a couple of problems I need to address on the back end memory-wise. But for now, we got the play and stop button on the menu bar. It's invoking game init and game cleanup correctly. All right, cool. So the next thing to look at would be getting something to display in the scene viewport. So for now, I'm just going to have it display what's being rendered to by the game. Which is a little tricky. I haven't really considered how best to encapsulate this. Because when it comes to rendering, the game code normally drives its the game code normally drives its own rendering. When we are rendering for the sake of play and editor, we need it to be wrapped in a frame buffer call. So that's done here for the sake of using EP Scene Manager Draw Scene, because that's how we'll normally render the scene when we aren't playing the game. But now I need to find a way to wrap the call that's made directly from the game code. So I think this is going to be a change that we'll need to make in the runtime for the engine. So in the engine, we normally will, this is the main loop, we'll update the time in the input systems. We then handle all of the fixed updates that need to happen in the scene and state manager. And then we will update the scene and state manager. So this is all the logic stuff that needs to happen every frame. And then we go into the draw stuff. We invoke the graphics pre-draw, the scene manager pre-draw, and this is where we will set up things like cascading shadow maps, where we will render the shadow maps prior to rendering the rest of the scene. And then we invoke State Manager Draw, and I presently only have that going if isRunning is true. So when play and editor is engaged, this should be running. I'm going to put a breakpoint there to confirm that, and then I'm going to run. Okay, so we're back in. We got the test game project loaded. And if I click play, cool, the breakpoint gets hit. So State Manager Draw is being invoked when isRunning is true. So the next thing to do would be to figure out how to get this wrapped in a frame buffer. I'm gonna take a quick break while I think about that. I'm gonna be back in probably like 10 minutes or so. And then at that point we will get the code working such that when play and editor is running, that it renders to this viewport. All right, be back in a little bit. Alrighty, I'm back. Alright, so where were we? So we got pretty much all the infrastructure in place for being able to run the game code while we are in the editor. We just need to get it to display on the screen. So that will involve getting the game code's rendering to be wrapped in a frame buffer, so that way when it goes to render, it renders to a texture instead of to the screen. And then I need to make that frame buffer available for use in the editor. So that's going to be a little tricky because I need to be able to wrap the whole thing with the frame buffer only at specific points in the engine's runtime. So we got runtime run. This is the main loop for a standalone application. We currently will optionally draw from the state manager from here. And that's optional because in the standalone game, the state manager would draw directly to the screen. So I'm thinking that here, where I draw when we are running, I may want to wrap this part with the frame buffer. Well, hi, Nick Dev. Nice to see you. This is C++ 17. C++ 20 looks really great. When I started this, it wasn't really available for all systems yet. And because I am developing on Mac OS, I don't think it technically is available for Clang, for Apple Clang. I'm not sure. So I'm still on 17. Not fully supported from what I've seen. Yeah, I think I haven't really Googled it for a while. Apple Clang C++ 17 or C++ 20. Yeah. So like there's a flag, but it's like not every feature is available. Yeah, you got C++ 2a. That's for CXX standard and the CMake file. But yeah. Future projects I may use. I think C++ 20 is great. There's still a few things that I think justify getting a C++ replacement language, but yeah, that's something I'm not really focused on right now. But yeah, so part of the problem is that I need to wrap the game code, the game module's draw code, in a frame buffer that is also available to the editor. So I either need to get something into this code from the editor code, or I need to do it the other way. I need to make something available to the editor, pass it out. I'm thinking passing it out would be a better play here. This is inside of the engine's runtime class. So let's go to the runtime header here. And we are already friends with the editor runtime. I think, right? Yeah. So there's a couple of systems that need access to the private members for the runtime. And the editor and the launcher have access to those, mostly so that you can construct a runtime within those runtimes. I'm thinking that I'll add an element here that is a frame buffer handle, and we can take that frame buffer handle out. Though, now that I'm thinking about it, I actually need access to the frame buffer handle outside of the runtime. So I'm going to need to have a wrapper getter, I think, just so that way the privacy of the element is respected in the game code. So game developers don't have access to this when they're using the Enterprise Engine library. But also so that it's available anywhere in the editor code that I want it. So what we'll do then is we'll do, I guess it'll be runtime get engine frame buffer, or I'll just type something and then I'll come up with a better name later. Get engine frame buffer. And that will be sufficient. And we will use that to wrap the code later on. So let's go to runtime.h for the editor. And we'll add a member here, static EP graphics frame buffer handle. I guess I don't have that header in quite yet. Get engine frame buffer. And so I'll need to include up here, include enterprise. Oh, that's interesting. Why isn't it? I'm not getting the enterprise stuff right up here. Include enterprise. I should be seeing enterprise / graphics.h. That's what I should be seeing. but it's not locating it for some reason. Let's go to the CMake lists for the editor, or for the engine. Include enterprise graphics.h and CMake lists for the editor. Oh no, this would be in the engines. Here, it's got a public. Yeah, publicly includes the include. What? So, why is there a problem? Yeah, this should be visible. I'm not sure what I've overlooked. Editor source, engine runtime. Because if we go to runtime.cpp, we have those same calls immediately above. Maybe this is just a stupid IntelliSense thing. Oh, it just resolved itself for no reason. All right, fine. Doesn't have frame buffer handle. Yeah, it does. Get out of here, IntelliSense. IntelliSense is drunk. Yeah, now it's resolved for no reason. Cool. And now we've got this call, and I can go to the runtime.cpp and implement it. This will be EP graphics frame buffer handle runtime. Oh, like that. And then we can return the EP runtime private member, which we haven't declared yet, which is going to be the, I guess I'll call it the wrapper frame buffer for now. And these are all bad names that I will refactor later on once I've solidified the code. Let's go to runtime.h on the engine side. And now we need to have a frame buffer object that is declared and used within the runtime class. So we'll make this a private member. We'll do it below all these friend declarations. We'll do it below the command line stuff. And we'll do it here. So this will be a static graphics frame buffer handle wrapper FB. And I need to include up here, I'll need to include enterprise/graphics to get the frame buffer handle type. Cool. And then we'll go to the runtime.cpp for the engine and actually declare the or define the thing here. This will be time wrapper FB. Cool. And this will default construct, but just to be explicit, I'll do equals 0 to make sure that it's set to the null frame buffer. Okay, cool. So now that we've got this, I need to go to runtime.cpp where we do the drawing down here. And then I need to include an additional check. So If we're using the dynamic version of the engine library, so in other words, if we are in the launcher or the editor application, we'll check to see whether we're running, and in the editor, this means that we're using Play in Editor. And then if the frame buffer handle has been created, then we will bind it or push it onto the stack before we do this draw call. So we'll do if wrapper FB, then we will do graphics push frame buffer wrapper FB, and then do the draw. So I'll do this a little bit more cleanly, like this. Cool. And that doesn't take an argument. Okay, cool. And so at this point, now we can create a frame buffer on the editor side. Set it as the frame buffer to which the game will render, and then we'll have access to its texture to render back to the editor somewhere. So I think we are in pretty good shape. Let me save that, and save this, and save this, and head back to scene, and we'll close the others. Yes, save changes to that. And now here is where we need to change the frame buffer. So at this point, we'll have already got the game will have already rendered to the frame buffer before we even get to this code. So we just need to render with it. And I'm kind of glossing over right now the fact that I still haven't actually created the frame buffer. I'll do that after I've got the implementation working, or written. So we'll do EP graphics. I would say get frame buffer, or sorry, get color texture from the runtime. Oops. Do I have the runtime here? I do not. So we'll include runtime.h from the editor's runtime. And then down here, when we go to get color texture, we will use runtime get engine frame buffer to get the frame buffer handle. And we're just using the first frame buffer attachment. We're only using the color, because remember this is a stand-in for the default frame buffer. So the idea is that the game code is unaware; it doesn't care whether it is rendering to a frame buffer or not. It's just gonna render as if it's rendering to the screen, and then the editor is free to intervene and then capture that within a frame buffer and then use that for rendering within the viewport. Cool. So now we've got the texture. I'll use the auto keyword for the moment because that's a lengthy type name. And then we need to render it. So that's actually going to be done down here. We have add image, viewport text. I will take that line of code, put it down here. And then instead of rendering the viewport texture, which is what we were doing before, we will render what I called unimaginatively the color texture, which is the texture that we got from the game's rendering, which is handled elsewhere. Cool. Cool. Because this is actually where we set the dimensions of the frame buffer, there might be one frame lag when you go to resize the frame buffer, or go to resize the viewport, because when you go to resize it, it'll change the dimensions of the frame buffer, but then that won't take effect until the next game frame renders. So there might be a little bit of a weird visualness when you're dragging and resizing the viewport, but I think that's a back burner problem. I don't think that's really a huge deal. We don't need this stuff anymore. Be pushing in the popping of the frame buffer we were using. Well, actually, I'm going to comment this out because that's code that I will probably want to reuse when we go to add the separate scene and game views in the editor, because they're going to use slightly different, do slightly different things. Yeah, we set the engine window width here, set the engine window height here, resize, and we resize the frame buffer. And so in this case, we'll need to resize the engine frame buffer instead of the scene frame buffer. Cool. I think we're just about ready. I will comment out. Actually, I'll reuse this code. So here's where I was creating the frame buffer for rendering before. It's a simple frame buffer attachment that's got an RGB8 image texture format. So we set the make texture to true, so that way we can actually use the output as a texture to render to ImGUI. The min-mag filter doesn't matter here because we are doing a pixel perfect redrawing of the frame, and then we create it. Instead of calling it SceneFB, we will call this. Actually, we don't need to declare it. We're going to be setting the engine frame buffer value here. And actually, now that I'm looking at this, I'm realizing that I need to have a setter as well, because that's a private member that I need to have access to in the editor, but not in game code. Void runtime set engine frame. Is that right? Do I need? Oh, I'm being tired. That's not right. I don't assign anything here. I don't need to. Wait, yes I do. I'm getting all turned around. It's still 100 degrees outside, and so I'm still not sleeping very well at night. So I actually do need void runtime set engine frame buffer for this situation, and we'll be passing in an EP graphics frame buffer handle. Here. And basically we'll just be assigning EP runtime grab_fb equals fb. Okay, and then I need to get this into runtime.h. And this should be resolving. Good. And then back out here, I now have set engine frame buffer. And I'll literally just directly pass the return value of create frame buffer into set engine frame buffer. Cool. And then down in cleanup, we do need to say get engine frame buffer, and delete that as part of the cleanup code. Oh, and you know what? We actually also have to... Yeah, we'll also have to invoke set engine frame buffer as well. And set it back to 0. Because when we go to reload the game module, we close one project and open another. We need to reinsert that... reinsert that 0 value, so that way it's not trying to invoke, it's not trying to push a frame buffer that doesn't exist onto the stack. Okay, cool. I think we're in good shape. Let me F7, see what I've inadvertently broken. Surely I broke something. So far, so good. I don't need every build target built for this test, but I just wanted to make sure that I didn't break something in one of the other targets. Okay, cool. So it's compiling. If I click play, aha! Look at that. Okay, so we've got the game code running, technically speaking. So this is the same scene that we run in the standalone. There's a few problems with it, though. So the first thing I've noticed is that it's off-center. It's not responding to any of my input right now, because right now IMGUI is capturing all of my input. So the text should be dead center. And when I go to resize, setting aside the flickering. Oh, which, you know what? I think that's happening because I'm redrawing IMGUI, but I'm not redrawing the game when I go to do a resize call. I'll come back to that. But when I go to resize, it seems to be cutting off on the edge here. So there's something wrong with the... I don't think that the frame buffer itself is resizing. I think it's the same size every time for some reason. Okay, well, still, this is progress. Let me close out of that, and just for a sanity check, I'm going to run the standalone game just to confirm that it's working there, and it is. This is the actual scene that we're trying to render. Heading back to the editor. So I don't think the frame buffer is getting resized correctly. So let's review that. So this is where the resizing happens. We call EP graphics resize frame buffer. We call it on the engine frame buffer. We set the engine window width and height directly, so that way the game code will respect the new dimensions. I don't think this matters execution wise, but I'm going to reorder that so that we're setting the window properties first, and then we're resizing the frame buffer. That makes more logical sense to me. So this is the point where we should be getting a size that matches the current frame buffer. So I am a little confused by that. I guess we're resizing here and then directly using it. The resize call, this effect should only be felt on the following frame. So So actually, because of that, now that I'm thinking about it, this should go after the rendering. So that way, when we go to render the frame, that is, we render the IMGUI frame. IMGUI will get the dimensions of the viewport from IMGUI. We will then render using those dimensions, and then after that, we will set the window width height and resize the frame buffer so that these will be available for the next render call. I don't think that makes any difference for how this is executing, but I'm just going to go ahead and sanity check and run and see what happens. Yeah, so we still got a problem. It's still not looking correct. So I guess let's set a breakpoint somewhere and do some inspection. So I'll set a breakpoint here after we get the frame buffer. Okay, so first thing I'm looking at is the width and height. I'll just copy and paste these into the watch window. So the width and height here are being evaluated as 1278 by 697, which feels right, but I should double check. Actually, that seems wide, doesn't it? That viewport doesn't look to be that size. Oh, okay, so actually it did resize. So apparently that was only like a frame 1 thing. IMGUI is giving us the wrong dimensions. Now it's 664 by 477, which seems correct. All right, stepping over this and that. We've set the engine window width and height, which basically just sets the private member of width and height for the purposes of giving the code the dimensions that we need for working. And then we call resize frame buffer on the engine frame buffer. I'm gonna step into that real quick. Okay, so we got the frame buffer handle, which is 1. That makes sense because it's the first frame buffer, the only frame buffer we have running right now. And we got the width and the height, 664 and 477. Okay, we are skipping over the resize code here because the dimensions match what we had on file, and that's the correct response. But I'm going to change my breakpoints now. I'm now going to set a breakpoint for when we actually do the resize. So I just went to resize it. We've still got frame buffer handle 1. We are getting the frame buffer attachment specification list. Hang on a second. Okay, this is a little beside the point, but I don't know why I'm not doing that as a reference. That should be a reference. Because I don't want to copy out the frame buffer attachment spec list for every time I go to resize. Oh, but create frame buffer takes by value anyway. Okay, that's fine. We delete create. And that seems to be all well and good. I don't know why. Like, that's pretty tried and true code at this point. I don't see any errors or warnings in the console. Oh, that's interesting. It's responding to my mouse now. I don't know why that would be. It's supposed to only... so in the game code itself, it's only supposed to respond to my mouse when I'm clicking and dragging. So somehow it thinks that I have clicked the mouse button and that IMGUI is not capturing the input. Okay, that's something I'll deal with later, but... Oh, you know what? I think I'm spotting where the problem might be. I'm gonna stop playback and start it over again. That's okay. I think it's not centered. I think we're seeing the lower left corner of the viewport or something along those lines. Hang on. Let me try this again. This time I'm not going to change out, so it should remain centered. So text 2, I think, is on the left-hand side of the actual viewport. So let me change to the launcher version. Yeah, so when we're taking a look at the frame as drawn in the standalone game, the text is being cut off here in the middle. Instead of, so we're actually seeing a subset that's kind of the lower left-hand corner, but it goes a little bit higher than that because we're actually seeing the words text 2 instead of being split off. So I think it has to do with the coordinates that we or the UV coordinates we're getting from the frame buffer texture, which surprises me because we didn't have this problem when we were rendering the test drawing from before. So I must have screwed something up here. So we got the resize frame buffer. Add the image. We have the texture. So I'm only using the first 3 parameters of the IMGUI add image call. I'm passing in the texture. I am setting up the pmin and pmax to say exactly where the texture will be rendered to in the IMGUI space. The UV max and min, though, 0, 0, and 1, 1, those defaults to 0, 0, and 1, 1, so those should be correct. For some reason they may not be, though. So maybe I'm going to set a breakpoint there. Oops, I need to go back to the editor. Okay, and then stepping in here. Not here. Here. One more time. 2 more times. It's I'm stepping into the constructors for all of these things. Okay, here we go. IMDrawList add image. So stepping into it, the UV min and max, 0, 0, and 1, 1. That's correct. Those should be sampling from the lower left corner and the upper right corner. Here we go. And now there's a sub method called prim rect UV. So we got a bunch of vectors, B, D, UVB, UVD. I'm assuming B and D represent the corners. Yeah, none of this seems to be the problem. So, yeah, I guess I'm just not seeing it. Yeah, it's not really obvious to me at all where the issue could be coming from. It does seem to be failing to resize correctly. It seems to be fixed on the lower left corner too. Okay. So when we go to draw, IMGUI is saying that it is trying to draw the whole texture, but I think that the viewport's not being set correctly. Oh, okay, I know what this is. This would be in runtime.cpp for the engine. Yeah, I was just being a dingus. I forgot to adjust the viewport. So 0 on left, 1 on right, 0 on bottom, 1 on top. So when I go to render, it was not changing the... it was not ever setting to be within the bounds of the entire texture. So I'm changing that. Okay, that's better. That looks correct. Okay, that doesn't look correct. It was looking correct. For the initial size, at least, it was displaying centered and with the correct aspect ratio. So now when I go to make this bigger, the problem is that we are still rendering to the same aspect ratio. So the aspect ratio is not being respected, I don't think. Is it also... well, it's more than that, it looks like. It's also... it's not updating the camera at all. So the projection, the MVP matrix that's being used to calculate this is not getting updated. Okay. So let's head back to scene. So this is where we do the frame buffer resize. We set the window width and height. So between these calls, we are not updating the camera information correctly, I don't think. Let me take a look at how I used to do setting width and height. Window. trying to remember exactly where this is. It would be window win32.cpp, I believe. All the setters are still in here. Well, actually, no, they are not. So that would be window.cpp, the general one. All right, set width, set height. Oh, yeah, there's a set width platform. That's right. Oh, it's not implemented yet. Yeah, that makes sense. So set width and set height are not even implemented. Which means that if I go to, maybe there's something in the getter, is get, wait. No, the getter is just returning the value. So maybe this is an issue with the game code itself. I'll go to the test state. This is the actual thing the actual applet that's running inside of the editor right now. Okay, so we clear the viewport, set a depth test, set blend mode, all that stuff. We use the inputs to drive the camera. We set the camera position and rotation based on the input, and then we use GLM perspective using EP window, get aspect. Oh, I'm not setting the aspect ratio, I don't think. I just return the aspect ratio and then I don't set it from get width and get height. Okay, yeah, so actually I need to do a little bit more here. Instead of just returning window width, or instead of just setting, sorry, in here I just say set width platform, and then from here I set the window stuff. But I also need to set the aspect ratio from here. So we'll say aspect ratio equals width divided by height. And this is actually a member of window, I believe. No, it's window width and window height. That's right. So we'll use width to represent the new parameter, and then we'll say window height here. And actually, this should be handled outside of the platform code as well. Let me clear that out. Yeah, and then let's open up the window Mac OS and clear them out of here as well. Width, height. Yeah, that's good. Do I have a set mode? Yeah, I do. And then in the set mode, oh, we're not actually storing the mode. I'll deal with that later. But yeah, so now up here we will set window width equals width. And we can say aspect ratio equals window width over window height. And then we'll do something similar for get height, or for set height. Like that. I think that's all we need. The platform-specific code, which even though it's not implemented right now, all that's going to do is actually adjust the window bounds when we're not in the editor. But that's a tomorrow Michael problem. Let's see if this will compile. Okay, that compiled. And let's see if it works. Hit play. Okay, we got the text displaying. Okay, we still got a resizing problem. So it's not quite there yet. Let's go back to the test state. And going through this code again. So now we got push camera, GLM perspective, Radeon 60. We get the aspect ratio from here. I don't know, that's kind of what we need. Because the game rendering code doesn't care what the dimensions of the window are. It only cares about the aspect ratio. So maybe that's... Let's do a quick gut check and confirm that that's working as expected. So we'll hit play. And we'll step into I must have skipped right over get aspect ratio. Let me go into it and set a breakpoint on it. Okay. Right now, so the first time around, the aspect ratio is 1, which is the default value. Let me change the state. H. Yeah, let me turn off the other breakpoint. Okay, and it's still set to 1. Let's continue execution, and I'll do a quick resize. I'll take this out, make it a little bit wider, and then I'll set that breakpoint again. The aspect ratio is not changing. Okay, that's important. How is the width and the height, though? Yeah, the width and the height seems to be changing. But when we go to set the width and the height, the aspect ratio is not getting updated like I thought it would. Why is that? Yeah, I don't have a good explanation for that. Set a couple more breakpoints. Yeah, and when I go to adjust the window size, this is telling those breakpoints are not triggering. So the set width and height are not being used at all. Oh. Okay, I think I know what's happening. So this needs to happen here, but I think what I've forgotten about in the editor window code here. Or where I'm setting the, oh, that's right, scene.cpp. Where I'm setting the new width and height, set engine window width and set engine window height. That's simply editing the member, and that's no longer sufficient. So actually, I think I can get rid of these calls outright. Because I can use the public member now because there's a generic and a platform-specific version of it. So let me find those references, which were set engine window width and set engine window height. Here. So these will now be calls to the EP set width. So EP window set width, right? And that's a public method. Cool. And what I'll be able to do with this eventually is I will be able to conditionally avoid running the platform specific code in the editor. So it won't actually try to resize a window when you set this. It'll only set the rendered dimensions, which means that if you're in a game and you have a game menu running in the editor and you make a game option that sets the resolution, you'll temporarily see that change, at least up until you go to resize the viewport. Yeah, I think that's probably fine. Let's try this out. I would turn on music, but I think I'm just about done with the stream anyway. What do we got, a linker problem? Failed to write the output file. Permission denied. That's not what I was expecting. Oh, I still have the editor running. I forgot. I forgot the editor was still running. Let's close that and rebuild. Okay, and try that out. All right, moment of truth time. Oops. So we got the play running. And I accidentally got the mouse input going again. All right, and if we take this out and resize it, still wrong. Let me at least confirm that the aspect ratio is updating. It's not still. Okay. Why not? Okay, so this is where it should be happening. EP window set width. If I step into it, I wind up here. Oh, right. I have the early out if we're in the editor. Right. Because if we're in the editor, then we skip over the platform stuff. So I just need to move the stuff up. It's always something. So the idea is that we need to set these values, and then if we're in the editor, then we'll skip using the set width platform because we don't actually have a window to resize in the case of the editor. Good, good. Yeah, that's all I need actually. F7 and reattempt. Okay. Oh, we got an error. What do we got? Integer division by 0. Oh, right. These set up by the default as, yeah, these default to be 0. So let's do this a little differently. We'll do a ternary operation. Window height. So if window height is equal to, or is greater than 0, then we'll use window width divided by height. Otherwise, we will just do 1. Okay. Oh, I need to do that twice. Yeah, so I need to bring that down to the set height as well. So we'll do that. Okay. Boop. Hit play. Okay, we got the text to display. There's always something. Okay, let me check the breakpoint again. Aspect ratio is still returning 1. Why? Is this code not executing? It is. Yeah, I don't get it. The aspect ratio should have just updated between these. So we have a window height that's non-zero, so we'll use the left-hand side of the ternary operation. And then it should be 10 to... Oh, these are integer types. Right. Maybe I should be storing these as floats instead of casting them around. Yeah, you know what? Let's make those floats. In my head, I was thinking that it would be better to do these as integers because, you know, you're talking about pixel sizes. But they'll all basically need to be converted into an aspect ratio anyway. So let's just convert 2 integers when necessary for the platform stuff. Float, 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 float. Good. And make these float as well. Good. That should be resolving. Yeah. And then just to be syntactically correct, I'll set these to 0.0f instead of that. And then I need to change these to be float. I'm very nearly done and I'm feeling it. And then I need to do window 132. Change these. Flip. Flip. Good, good. Yeah, that should be good. And then window macOS .mm. We need to change these to floats. Cool. And now that they're float types, this division will be correct. Cool. Take that out and turn off these breakpoints and recompile. All right, and 10th time is the charm. Okay, play and editor is fired up correctly. Yes! Okay, look at that. So it still blacks out while I'm clicking and dragging, but the aspect ratio is now correct, and the scene view is identical to what I see when I'm playing the game. So now we've actually got the game code literally from the game entry point running in here, and the code is actually running in the background. It's just not capturing my input because GUI is consuming it. But if I switch to another application and back, maybe I can trick it to picking up my input. Not really clear on how I did that before, but I managed to get it to think that I had my mouse button held down while I wasn't in the editor. Yeah, doesn't really matter. Cool, so we've got play and editor quasi working. The code is actually executing. It's just that you're not able to interact with it because the input's being caught. And just to be extra sure of that, let's go to test state.cpp. This is the game state that's actually rendering the scene and stuff. And I will animate something. So instead of doing this, instead of doing the text drawing that we have going on right now, I will use this from an earlier test where we set a text rotation value based on game time and rotate it about the center axis. So I play. Cool, and now we see the scene is rendering and it's showing animations as well. If I go to resize this, the game view automatically updates and works correctly. That's awesome. I think this is a screenshot moment. Wait for the text to come back around and snag it. And put this on Twitter or something. But cool, all right. So this is, 3 hours. Had to resolve a whole bunch of tiny little bugs and things that I hadn't considered until I've had to use it. But we officially got a game's execution running in the editor, displaying correctly. And if I go to now, this is something we haven't tested before. I'm going to try and stop it and play again. Okay, so we have a warning for a duplicate event registration. That's fine. I'll ignore it. Cool. And so I can start and stop correctly. If I stop and then I go to close project, we've still got the frame buffer texture being rendered. When I go to resize, though, it invalidates. So there's that. I'll have to work on that. We'll open the project again and see what happens. Can I hit play and have everything start working? Okay, and we've got a problem. So when I go to close and reopen the project, the play stops working, and I don't know why. Probably has to do with some of the things that we have failed to clean up when we go to stop and unload a game project. That's good to know. I'm going to try running the editor by itself. So this time around I didn't automatically open up the project. I'm going to try opening the project and then hitting play and confirming that it works that way. All right, cool. I'm going to call it a day for the programming. I've got other things I have to do. Thanks for popping in. It's been fun, and it's kind of exhilarating to have an editor that actually renders things now, because now we're getting to the point where we can start doing the fun stuff, which is like getting entities and scene crafting tools made, and things like that. But there's still a bunch of behind the scenes stuff that needs to happen to allow proper cleanup and unloading and reloading of game modules and things like that. Plus some complications with the editor runtimes. So like when you're running a debug version of your game, it's going to want to use the debug CRT, and the editor is going to want to use the release, at least the shipping version of the editor is going to want to use the release CRT. So I've got to resolve that conflict. But yeah, this is all looking pretty swellerific from my point of view. All right. See you later.